To start out, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski is definitely for adults, so be warned as we're talking about this. This has some mature themes. I hate this book, but it's a masterpiece. In Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, we are brought into the character's shoes to an incredible degree. That is to say, bored and uncomfortable. That is also how this book made me feel. It's uncomfortable, unsettling, yet unendingly alluring, which is exactly how the characters feel when they encounter any work regarding the house, which is the main subject of the book, and it's always written in blue on Ash Tree Lane. Johnny, the main character, encounters the old man Zampano's written work on the subject. Zampano encounters it in photojournalist Davidson's documentary, and Davidson, allegedly, even in the book we're uncertain, experiences the house himself. All of them have grief and trauma they are dealing with, and the horror of the story expresses this in a unique way. To be clear, this is absolutely a product of the early 2000s with its edgy grit and unlikable characters, but it's masterfully constructed, bringing you into the shoes of the characters and even sympathizing with them as the story continues. The slow descent into madness is evident in both the writing and the design of the pages, which is experimental and modern. It has the moral consequence to pride and ego characteristic of an H.P. Lovecraft novel, with a backrooms and found footage twist. This is an odd book, folks, so spoilers ahead, be prepared for what we are about to talk about. But that being said, we have a confession to make. If you can see in the book here, I have a bookmark there. I have been reading this about every 2 hours a day for the past 3 weeks, and that's as far as I got into the book. And yet, this is the amount of notes I wrote about it. And Rebecca is in a similar boat.
Yeah, so due to some personal changes that we talked about in later part of this podcast, we got really busy. We've been super duper busy, and if you are a local to Glenmore Springs, you would have known that we were in the parade. Thanks to me. No, I just shot it. It's thanks to everybody in the district. I was trying to be a little bit mean, but no.
But that being said, between some staffing changes, one of which being our manager getting promoted to executive director, congrats again to Abraham,
yes,
as well as just some big events happening in the branch, we've been busy. So we apologize that we have not read this book thoroughly, but I promise you, despite that, we have plenty to talk about.
Yes, and plus, from the explanation videos that I was seeing and reading some of the Reddit posts, it is a wild trip, especially because this is analog horror, which we'll get to later on.
Yeah, it manages to be a written analog horror, backroom style, story inside a story inside a story.
Limited space.
If you are looking for a project that will consume you for a couple of months, I would recommend reading this book. You end up really in the character's shoes of investigating Zampano's work and trying to connect the red string, so to say, yourself as you're reading it. But getting into some of the genres of the book, the first thing that is maybe the most impactful part of the novel is the unreliable narrators. We have a few unreliable narrators. We have a gentleman named Zampano, who at the beginning of the book dies. We have our main protagonist, Johnny, who finds Zampano's work and starts reading it and essentially becomes eldritch obsessed with it, a la H.P. Lovecraft. We have Johnny's mom, whose name is eluding me at the moment. Pelafina, thank you. We have a gentleman named Ed, who is not explained throughout most of the book until later we find out he's the editor of the book, and he's leaving footnotes as well. And then there are just other random footnotes that may be from someone we aren't really sure where they come from. But all that to say is every single one of those narrators is an unreliable narrator. Zampano is writing about a documentary he's watching, problem, he's blind. Johnny is encountering Zampano's work, but he suffers from severe substance abuse, and he has had a lot of trauma in his life, and he's a really large liar, which he likes to talk about and brag about throughout the footnotes. And then Palladina comes in much later in the book, and we're not sure where her place is in the story. What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna be brutal about this,
please,
because I just had too many things where I'm like, I have two sides to me when I read a book. Usually it's the logical side of like, why don't you just do this? It's not that hard, like, or there's also the other side of me that's just like, yeah, I can understand that and fall into the conspiracy and actually love that part of the book.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
book really did pull very heavily on both. It wasn't like one was fighting the other, but I still had that logical part of me that was just like, you guys are so just dumb.
I want to emphasize the characters are so horrifically unlikable. Yeah, there are several times where I just like put down the book. I'm like, I'm gonna shake this man.
Yeah, immediately Johnny was the sort of character that I just don't like in a person. I just don't like people who are too much into themselves when in reality they're very insecure. I've always talked about insecure people.
Yes.
I'm insecure, but I own up to it, and I'm going to keep owning up to it. So people who are like that, who keep pretending like they have no insecurities, and yet he has multiple flaws, multiple times where it's mentioned, or like you realize this man is mentally ill.
Yes.
And clearly needs some kind of psychiatric help.
And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but one of the biggest critiques I have of the book is the way that they depict women. Once again, this is very much a product of the early 2000s and that kind of edgy grit in the way that women are described, but it is from the get-go. You get the first woman you meet is described rather poorly. It's as is described in a couple of articles, which I'll get the name of at the end for you guys to read if you want to, as a follow-up to this. It's very much written from the male gaze. Females are described for their physical attributes primarily, and when their emotional attributes are described, typically it's as a complaint. But that being said, again, we'll talk about it a little bit later, it does actually play into the narrative a bit. But all that to say is this book is really good at weaving in the mystery while still making you not feel sorry for the characters as they're going through what they're going through to a degree.
Yeah, I think seeing people going through such a situation, you do have to empathize with them.
A little bit.
Yeah, and as much as I hate that I say this about Johnny, I do empathize with him just on behalf of him being an insecure person. And you can tell he battles a lot with loneliness. And
keep talking, I'm finding a quote.
No, yeah, just the fact that he battles with that loneliness is just kind of makes you realize that he's a human being and we're all kind of flawed in that aspect. And Zampanos was also a sad, lonely guy who was
poor Zampano.
No, yeah, I think he's the only one that I genuinely was like, oh, poor guy. Especially with one of the moments we're actually going to be talking about soon, and in one of the theories, and one of my logical senses of being like, you guys are dumb, it's not that deep. When in reality it could be that deep, but yeah.
But no, Zampano, at least throughout, or at least as is described, does have people who visit him to help him write this book when he was still alive. But nonetheless, Johnny is a little bit less endearing. I'm trying to find a quote. Thank you for your patience, my friends, as I'm trying to find it. But since can't seem to find it in my notes. In short, there comes a scene, I believe in chapter 4, where Johnny starts empathizing with Zampano and his suffering as someone who's blind. And then he kind of goes into his own trauma about being abandoned as a child and things like that. And then suddenly it's like, oh, now his insecurities begin to make a bit more sense. And this is all to say that we're going to be touching on this a lot. The house is a metaphor for grief. The house, whether you are directly going to the house or you're reading literature about the house or a movie about the house, all seem to draw in people that are suffering from a great amount of grief. And its manifestations are of people who are trying to avoid maybe processing their grief. But that being said, in terms of the way it manifests, the book structure itself is you get the introduction of Zampano's died, Johnny goes and finds his written work. Johnny then reads the written work left by Zampano about a documentary about this house called the Davidson Record. So we are getting the perspective of Zampano's thoughts on the Davidson Record, Johnny's footnotes on that, and then the additional footnotes from there. But the house itself is very backroomsy, and the way that the Davidson Records is written is very analog horror.
Yeah. And we want to talk about analog horror now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So analog horror is probably one of my favorite genres. Just the fact that it makes you uncomfortable. It's psychological. It is psychological horror in the sense too, because you get overdeveloped into these settings and these plots, especially just with this book specifically because you learn about a home, and it's not like a whole world. It's just one singular space you're talking about, and that's even more mind-bending than having an entire world that really messes with your mind.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about my favorite analog
Yeah, go for
horror. My favorite analog horror is This House Has People in It, and I've talked to Sarah about it, and it's just it's a very interesting way of it's playing with physics also, you know?
Absolutely.
It's playing very much into the sci-fi aspect of things, and the fact that things happen that you wouldn't normally think would happen in reality in what we say day-to-day life, it makes you so uncomfortable because you would never think that would happen. And if they make that into a show, which this is actually a mini short film that they actually do, and it's a family who's within a home, and there's security footages, so it's a lot of analog horror is found footage.
Yes.
And this is the description of it. A deeply dysfunctional blended suburban family preparing for a birthday party while their teenage daughter begins literally phasing and sinking into the floorboards. And it's because there is a sickness called Linux. And everybody's getting infected by it. And she's infected by it. But the fact that there's an infection that changes your own
it's like you
metaphysical everything, your biological everything. It's wild to me, and I just love feeling uncomfortable when I read things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing that's so scary is that your very essence of your being is what's being messed with here.
Yeah.
That's not entirely what happens in House of Leaves, but House of Leaves still does feed off of that same narrative because Navidson, the main protagonist of the Navidson records, is spoken to be a photojournalist. He goes and he does work where there is a point that is important to the plot where he goes to Sudan and he takes pictures of starving children. And a reminder about the time period this was written in the 2000s, there was kind of a non-intervention policy for journalists. So Navidson deals with a lot of grief, specifically around one girl he photographs called Delisle, who is a starving child being hunted down by a vulture.
Yeah.
But that being said, aside, this is going to be a little rambly today, folks. I apologize because that's the nature of this book.
No, literally, I think if we're going to be doing anything in this podcast, is we're going to be mirroring what this
book is.
Yeah.
But that being said, Navidson, as being a photojournalist, sets up cameras around the house, a la analog horror style, to get candids of the family. And when he first starts recording, it's very suburban and lovely. You have, his wife drinking a glass of lemonade and the kids making craft candles and all these things, and everything's fine until they go on vacation and they come back and suddenly there's a closet that wasn't there before.
Yeah. And actually, the thing about this family is they're also kind of dysfunctional.
They're already, from the get-go, it's painted as this kind of picturesque scene, but there's tension brewing in the air from minute one. There's some obvious tension between the wife and the husband, but at first it's kind of downplayed, and it gets heightened from the experiences in the house. As Navidson slowly becomes obsessed with finding the answers, he starts realizing that the outside measurements of the house don't match the inside measurements of the house, and he brings a whole bunch of people into the house, and Karen's like, stop. Karen is the name of the wife. Karen says, stop caring, it doesn't matter. Just leave the weird rooms alone and it'll be fine. And once again, as an allegory for grief about avoiding and how we handle these things.
Yeah.
What really causes the main problem is when a large hallway appears that the kids they have disappear down for a little while before they're able to rescue him. Karen bars him from ever entering, and as a challenge, Davidson says, well, you can't tell me what to do, and ends up going in there, and has some pretty horrific experiences whilst there, and is only saved because of his daughter calling out for him. But that being said, it's almost like the house is unbound on the inside.
That's true, and the fact that you just said that he was brought back by his daughter calling out to him really does give a call back to that whole trauma thing.
Yeah.
Because if the only way you're going to overcome grief and trauma is truly by allowing yourself to be open with it and filling those holes in your life from what you were grieving. And the fact that his daughter maybe something that he has internally of being like, she's the one thing that can help me.
Absolutely.
And it's very, oh my God, it just hit me right now. I don't know if you had realized this earlier, but it hit me right now, that the fact that it's his young daughter that
It's his
brings
young
him
daughter.
back to.
And the thing that's also interesting is when he first realizes, oh no, I'm being chased by something in the darkness here.
Yeah.
The first person he calls out for is his wife.
Oh yeah.
You know. But the allegory of this being grief is very heavy hitting throughout the entirety of the book. There are several quotes about it. And there are several ways that it's referenced throughout. But I think it's interesting how he kind of describes how the children aren't affected as much by the house. The direct quote from page 22 is, "It is not difficult to understand how children who have suffered from malnutrition or starvation need food and plenty of care if their bodies are to recover so they can go on to lead normal lives. If, however, the starvation is severe enough, the damage will be permanent and they will suffer physical impairments for the rest of their lives. Likewise, children who are deprived of emotional nurturing require care and love and their sense of security and self-confidence to be restored. However, if love is minimal and abuse high, the damage will be permanent and the children will suffer emotional impairments for the rest of their lives." This is also a quote which I thought I had written down here about the kids, where when the closet appears, they just go in and they play in the closet completely and utterly unfazed. They're, at least from how far I got into the book, the children are never really harmed by the house. The parents are the ones that are harmed by the house.
They still have that innocence to them.
But as Davidson's dealing with the grief of Delisle, which is that child that was starving, that's kind of what that says. And to Davidson and Karen and Johnny, who is the main protagonist, and Zampano, and the author himself, all of them have this theme of childhood trauma and how that affects their insecurities moving forward and their avoidances of facing these things.
100%, yeah.
There also seems to be a theme in the men that they use self-deprecation to cover up their trauma as opposed to actually going and feeling it. And that's particularly evident in Johnny, both in his substance abuse and in the way that he talks about himself and his friends.
Yeah.
Moving on a little bit more, we mentioned earlier some of the ways that women are portrayed in the book. One of the things that's interesting is some of the women also seem kind of immune to the effects of the house. As while many of them have encountered the same pieces of literature that Johnny has that has made him so obsessed, and therefore all eldritch horror should be affected by, they don't seem to be as affected by. And my theory for that is it seems like most of the women have connections with others. They have this ability to branch out and build community, which Johnny and Zampano and Davidson don't have as much.
No, you can totally tell, especially from the first little set of blurbs from Johnny in the beginning of the book, that he clearly does not like being around people other than just lewd. And lewd,
And lewd
is very close to what he is lewd.
You know, lewd is not a good guy. He is. The reason Johnny came across this dead man's work in the first place is because Zampano was a neighbor of Lude, and when Zampano died, Lude was like, "Let's go raid his apartment."
Yeah. I hate him. And I honestly, it just really goes to show that the house messes with people who are terrible people. And you have to be really, really bad for the house to be like, you know what, you suck. Except Zampano's, and that's my other thing. Which we might get to that. My whole theory about Zampanos and why I think the house is only mean to people who are really mean, but Zampanos isn't really all that terrible like Johnny and Lude.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I'm like, okay, maybe there is more to my logical sense to this of like, guys, it's not that deep, bring it down, you know?
Zampano has suffering in another way, which is the fact that he's blind, which there is also a motif in the book about darkness, and darkness being this metaphor for the ununderstandable, and it being something that certain people become obsessed with having the answer to. Like, they have to go into the dark, they have to find the answer, they have to know, instead of just sitting with the darkness, which Zampano is forced to sit with the darkness because he's blind. He has no other choice. And there's several points throughout the book where Zampano's blindness ends up affecting the narrative, and Johnny comments on it. But I think in its own way, there's a quote from the end of a chapter about Zampano that I think really matches up with that same thing. Here it is. The last woman who saw Zampano for the last time remarked that, Whatever it was he could never quite address in himself prevented him from ever settling. Death finally saw to that. So even Zampano was someone who, despite sitting in the darkness, still couldn't find the answer. But speaking of earlier, you mentioned that the house only affects bad people. I am a fairly big fan of H.P. Lovecraft, if that wasn't obvious from the fact I've mentioned it a few times.
I know, I put H.P. Lovecraft as a reference for anything analog for too.
Yes, but specifically there's a short story by H.P. Lovecraft called The Hound, I believe. And essentially the gist of it is there are these two academics who get their kicks off of grave robbing and stealing precious artifacts. And obviously they get their comeuppance when they steal something they shouldn't. And the hound comes and hunts them down and eats them alive. And from the way Johnny talks in the introduction about these texts, it is almost, there are quotes that are almost one-to-one between the hound and this work. So there is also this element of not messing with things beyond your understanding, your control, or staying in your lane a little bit.
Yeah, and also comparing works.
Yeah.
There's something that I had figured out, and I was talking to Sarah about this earlier.
Yes.
And it's a callback to our first episode that we did with Shirley Jackson.
Oh yes, the Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, so in the show, and I don't know if I really did touch on this in the podcast that day, but the red room in the show is very important to it's basically like the foundation of what the show is. The red room is the stomach of the house as it's described by the characters, because it actually adapts to whatever the inhabitant wants. So Nellie was having it as a playroom, while Leo, her twin brother, used it as a tree house, and then her sister Theo would be using it for a art room, and then I forget her older brother's name, he would use it as a gaming room. But nonetheless, it was still a run-down red room with nothing inside of it, and yet it would adapt to whatever they wanted, and it was so clear in their mind that that room was exactly how they had described it, because nowhere else in the home could you find rooms that they described.
Yes.
And the reason why it's called the stomach is it's because it digests the person in there, and it feeds off of them, off of their feelings, and then just quieting them while the house does what it does: haunt people, take their souls, have them murder themselves in there. And that's what the Ash Tree Lane house is. It's the same thing, where it's like the closet only opens up when there is somebody with a trauma and a grief, and it feeds off of that. It feeds off of them, and I think it messes with them the more they are either traumatized, grief-stricken, or even a terrible person. It really feeds off of that energy, and it very much mirrors that in The Haunting of Hill House.
Absolutely.
And it's just when I was reading that, I was like, oh my god, it's the same thing.
You know, it's very similar in terms of like the house is the metaphor of the trauma here, because in Haunting of Hill House, the idea, at least in the book, was that there was a woman who killed herself because she wasn't able to be with her love, or what have you. There, speculation, and that persisted in the house. Whereas the house on Ash Tree Lane, all of the book, has been around since 1790 and has had trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. So it's just this amalgamous level of just incessant oily darkness. That's the way it's described, is literally oily darkness.
And no, it's literally like a house being bathed in blood every single time, and it's never going to get cleaned up. And it's the same for both of them. There was the daughter of the groundskeepers who were there to greet the family, who their kid died ages ago, and is still there. And the thing I find interesting about both Haunting of Hill House, I'm realizing in this moment, and this, is even if you leave the house will follow you. Johnny never actually goes to the house, nor does he watch the Navidson record, despite his best attempts, because according to Johnny, the Navidson record as a documentary doesn't exist. But yet he is still affected by the same monster that affects Navidson when he first explores the hallway. There's this scene in chapter 4 where Navidson is finally exploring the depths of this house, and he gets left in this pit of blackness, and suddenly he hears growling. He can see something on the edge of his vision. And Johnny, in the real world,
as much as we can tell from his madness, start seeing the exact same thing, where the lights will start to flicker and he'll feel this presence behind him, this great darkness.
Yeah.
In terms of a metaphor for grief, it's the same thing of no matter how much you avoid it, it will continuously follow you. And the same thing happens in Haunting of Hill House.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the kids, they all grow up, they don't talk to their dad because their mom dies in the home, which is what leads them to leaving the house. And they always, well, Nellie ends up sadly taking her own life at the Haunting of Hill House, or at Hill House, at Hill House, and so then it leads to everybody somehow coming back to this home, and the next person who is set to die after Nellie is her twin brother Leo, and thankfully, everybody's like, no, we're gonna save him, and Nellie actually is the one who saves them all. Is like, this house is going to take him, and if you guys don't start working together and stop this like hatred within you, it's going to feed off of it even more, and it's going to take another one of you, and that's actually what leads to them. And that's the thing. Ash Tree Lane, from how far we've gone,
Admittedly, from how limited we get, which we did not finish the book.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there is a happy ending. While in
from what I
Haunting of Hill
understand,
House,
yeah,
there's an okay, yeah, and then Haunting of Hill House, there is a happy ending because Leo ends up being cured from his, not cured, but improving from his drug addiction, and then Theo and the two older siblings are finally getting along. The older sibling, or the elder brother, doesn't fight with his siblings anymore over the book he published, and he accepts that things did happen as kids, and he realizes that he was haunted just as much as them, and it's really just like, oh.
And one might say that of the TV show, but even in the book, it had a relatively happy ending. Admittedly, Ellie in the book does kill herself at the end, but the rest of the folks in the house all manage to get away. Her sacrifice is seemingly enough.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, which spoilers from the analysis we did, no, it does not end happily. Everyone goes mad. And it's not pleasant.
Yeah. The reality thing, though, yeah. And should I give my theory?
Yeah, go for it. I would say at this point, is there anything else before we go on to like what this kind of book is and why it's still worth the read, or why we would recommend the read? I have closing thoughts at this point, so please, if there's anything else.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you guys the honest truth, my logical sense to this book that really, when I was listening to everything, understanding the whole plot of this, the Davidson records aren't real. Zampanos is unreliable. He's blind. There's nobody in his home to tell him whether it is real, actual fact documentary, or if it's just a Blair Witch project of a film.
There are women who come to visit him to help him in his writing, but even they, when they're like, "Are you sure about this?" He's like, "No, just write it down."
Yeah. And that's the craziest part. And it's and because I think it's just karma or whatever you guys want to call it. Johnny finding these transcripts, and how do you explain that? He's crazy. He has mental illness. He abuses drugs. Of course, this is going to be like, brother, please. And the people who were around him, who maybe, I'm not sure if in the book other people start seeing it too alongside with him, but I think it's just his own psyche making him believe this stuff rather than actually being fact.
There's no assured answer as to whether or not Johnny is crazy or not, but I'd say that's a solid theory.
100%.
Because throughout the book, you're constantly like, is this guy just going mad? Because like when he first encounters that beast I mentioned earlier, he's at his job at a tattoo shop, and he's in the hallway outside of his job, and the hallway darkens and the sun clouds over, and everything goes quiet as he feels this beast that suddenly is just never there. And his boss doesn't notice anything is wrong. None of the clients notice anything is wrong. So it's like, did Johnny just go crazy? And the answer is very maybe.
100%. And then also, if we're gonna be falling into this kind of like, oh no, it has more meaning. The other one that I think has more meaning, the theory, is that Pelovina, his mom, is writing all of this as an ode to him, to Johnny, because there is a theory that he may have died young, and that she is creating this world of what if he had lived, and what if he had lived in a very messed up sense. But nonetheless, it's her way of coping with the death of her son. And so I think if we're going to be reading too much into something, I would say that is the better theory out of all of these.
The only
I'm too logical.
The only thing that pokes a hole, which really there is no poking holes in any theory about this book because the book really is just that hard to decipher, is that there are footnotes from someone who is described as Ed for the first several chapters, which you later find out is an editor who is coming across Johnny's work of this and making his own notes. So theoretically, Johnny got this out to an editor to get published. So theoretically he's alive, but once again, you don't really know.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of this book is the fact that you can speculate and you can create your own narrative and your own idea of what really is the point of this book. And that's really what I like about analog horror is just how open-ended everything is. And it's as much as some people really want a satisfying conclusion or a satisfying answer, it's really fun to have that kind of red string theory stuff.
Absolutely.
And like it's a good way of literature affecting you in a positive way and actually building that imagination as well as those problem solving skills within people. That's one of the reasons why I really have enjoyed the Marvel series because it does that too. It's like, oh my god, what is the meaning of this? And it's like, it's nothing. But really, 3 movies later, it
actually does mean something.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of really all kind of media that does that sort of thing, that makes you think, that makes you truly use your mind in watching that media, because there's so much media out there that's so dull and so mind-numbingly stupid. Sorry, I don't mean to offend, but it's true. I think right now in this day and age, there's so much of a lack for
critical
stimulation. Critical thought, and I'm like, if people don't start finding an alternate from these traditional things of just reading a book or actually doing proper research on certain things, then you're going to lose that aspect of humanity where a lot of things are just unique to the human that's creating it.
Absolutely. And that's not to say that everyone needs to read House of Leaves, because in terms of like speculative fiction, or not even speculative fiction, in terms of like fiction that makes you think and dig and do processing outside of just what the story says itself, it is on like this end of the spectrum. It is absolutely insane. Again, I like to consider myself a fast reader, and I really did give a good effort of this, but I only got 100 pages in of the 700 pages.
Yeah, I mean, I only got through 10, and I still, I mean, look, you got through 100, right?
Yeah.
100 pages. I only got through 10, and I still had a lot to talk about, because it's that much of an in-depth book, and I think that's what should appeal to people. It's just the how much you don't have to read a lot to like really start thinking about it.
What I really like about the backrooms or analog horror or eldritch horror versus some other genres of horror like slasher horror is when it comes to slasher horror, you know what the problem is. You know there is a man in a mask that is chasing you down with a knife and trying to kill you. And that's not to bash it necessarily. Like, there's a time and a place for simple stories. There's a time and a place for a story to just be what it is. To be what it is on the surface and have that be have that be the story. There's plenty of things in life that also work like that, but there are also plenty of things in life that have a deeper meaning. And when you're reading something like this, I honestly compare it less to a novel, even though it is a story and there is a plot to it, and more of like an experience or almost like a piece of art, in the way of like when you're going through an art gallery, you see the collection of pieces together, and each of the pieces of art might have its own individual meaning, but when you see it in a collective together, there's typically also a greater meaning to it. And when you're reading this book, it kind of is the same thing. If you're getting several Mad Men's perspective, mad being crazy here, of a maybe real, maybe not real house that's very clearly pulling on the grief that they've lived. And it's one of those things of, as you're red stringing, you're also learning your own perspectives on things. As Rebecca and I were both talking, there are several times throughout the book where I just want to shake Johnny, and I'm just like, can you just for once just stop trying to lie about what you're feeling and just say what you're feeling? And about the only time he actually does it is when he's in love with a woman named Thumper, who I will not talk about more because it's a little bit too explicit for the podcast. And as well as his empathy for Zampano and the suffering he went through. And in both of those moments, it's like, can you please just bring out that humanity? In referencing other media, there's an indie animation that recently came out that I'm obsessed with called The Amazing Digital Circus, and I won't spend too much time talking about it. But there's one character specifically who, throughout the entirety of the show, just pushes people away, refuses to show any amount of vulnerability, and in the end, she dies. And it could have been incredibly easily prevented had she just let others take care of her. And I think that's also kind of the moral of this book is, if you try to avoid your grief, it will consume you.
100%. Yeah.
So that to say, I have a hard time saying I recommend reading this book, but if you're interested in losing 2 months of your life to a red string and learning more about yourself, I would recommend reading the book.
Yeah, 100%. And then if you guys do have read this book and really enjoy stuff that is analog horror, I have a list.
Yes.
I created a list.
Please give the list of more accessible things, and I can give my list of H.P. Lovecraft as well.
Yeah, so I said anything H.P. Lovecraft, which I'll allow you to do after every these.
Yes.
These are the books. Episode 13, which actually when I read it looks very interesting. It's when a hit reality TV ghost hunting team investigates a derelict mansion famous for bizarre 1970s experiment. Their search for proof of the afterlife goes horribly, tragically wrong. And then there's Mr. Magic. Mr. Magic is a 2023 supernatural thriller novel by Kirsten White about the former child stars of a mysterious children's show who reunite to uncover the truth behind its tragic cancellation and their enigmatic host, Mr. Magic, which that's also like lost media. I love lost media stuff. The Hollow Place. Korah moves in with her uncle, who runs a museum of oddities. She finds a hidden corridor leading to other worlds where unseen, terrifying entities lurk. The creatures grow stronger the more you fear them. And then visual media, like I said, the house has people in it. Local 58 TV, which is actually one of the most recent media that has been really big in the analog horror scene. I think analog horror became very popular in like 2010s, and then slowly has just progressively gone from there. And each video in Local 58 TV presented as a broadcast from a fictional public access television station in Mason County, West Virginia. The broadcasts are frequently hijacked by sinister, mind-altering, and surreal content. And the last one, which is, it's not entirely, it is analog horror, but it's also created by regular people. It's not like it is, I don't know. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. The SCPs.
Oh my, I was going to say the SCP Foundation if you didn't.
Because it's very, as much as it is open to anybody writing into it, creating their own SCP, it's also analog horror because there are these creatures and we're living in a world where the United States is overrun by these creatures, and if certain things are happening, you have to either do certain, I love the little like, national emergency announcements they make. They're so much fun.
To explain what an SCP is for those who don't know, the SCP Archives, I think is the full name, is a...
Oh, no, it's SCP Foundation.
Foundation. It's the SCP Foundation. Is a website and like Wikipedia page of sorts of a bunch of different, like, think X-Files mixed with Men in Black creatures that get inhabited into this like small containment prison, and all of the records and things that happen with it. But it's very much an analog horror. If you like analog horror and you like monsters and cryptids, check out the SCP Foundation. Especially
because if you really like stories about these certain SCPs, then there is actually stories people create online, which they actually have their own wiki site. Where you can find the files, the tales of certain SCPs. I'm just looking at it right now, and it's pretty cool. It's very beautiful as a community project, which I think community projects of analog horror are the best.
And before I go into H.P. Lovecraft, the other piece of media I'd recommend on the same front of this sort of thing is Welcome to Night Vale, which is another podcast. Once again, horror, unreliable narrator, you're not entirely sure what's happening in this town. And in terms of H.P. Lovecraft, as another warning, as we gave with the adult themes here, H.P. Lovecraft himself, not a great guy, very racist, and that shows in his work. But if you're interested in the Eldritch and using grief and not just grief, but also assumptions and negative attitudes towards people in other cultures and the consequences of that, I'd recommend some of these stories. Ones that I thought were related to this are Dagon, which is one of the most classic H.P. Lovecraft stories, has a very sea-bearing monster in it. Nyarlathotep, which is about a prophet from Egypt who does horrible deeds. The Unnameable, which is about a thing in an attic, which is very, very similar to this. The Nameless City, which is about a city that's been abandoned for thousands of years and is unspeakably old, as well as The Hound. You can find all of those in H.P. short stories. They're all typically a couple of pages. Is there anything else you want to say in the book before we wrap this up?
No, but I think we're done. But
what an experience this book was. Part of me never wants to touch this again, and part of me knows that as soon as I go home, I'm going to keep reading it.
Yeah, because I honestly am thinking of on my free time, I'm going to be reading this. But yeah,
absolutely. And that being said, this is the last podcast of this season of the podcast. We will be resuming again. Our first episode will be airing again in August. September.
Yes.
Yeah, September will be the next episode for season 2. We hope you all have enjoyed season 1. Please give us feedback. Let us know what you think. And we will see you all in season 2.
Actually, can I say some more?
Oh, yes, please.
Yes. I just want to thank everybody because I think this is our first season and I don't think we've really said thank you to everybody.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you to all of the guests that have come on and made this possible. Thank you to Brendan and James, our social media guys, that have been allowing us to do this.
I want to thank me and Sarah. No, I just got really thank you, Brendan and James and Abraham, for really making this happen. I don't know if any of you know, but Abraham really saw us being passionate about podcasts, and he actually told us, let's do it. Alex also was very instrumental in that. I told him about it. He said, let's do it. I think that if we have to say anything kind about GCPLD is how helpful and comforting and also supportive this entire team has been.
No, absolutely.
And I thank you, Sarah, for helping me with this too.
Thank you for being on this with me and putting up with my nerd butt.
No, I really do appreciate everybody who's worked on this. And as much as I sound like I am a very cold person, I'm not a cold person.
Nah.
And as much as I sound mean to everybody else in the world, I genuinely care about everybody who works on this. And it's just, really thank you very much for everything.
Again, thank you to all of the guests that have been on the show with us. We appreciate your time and your impact in the community, both in the library and outer, because we've talked with some guests from both the library district and those who are in our community. We want to say that we value you and we appreciate your contribution to this. And again, given our talk with Jamie and Abraham, GCPLD is just a lovely place that really enables all of us to really help the community, both patrons coming in and us going outwards.
Yeah.
So thank you to the library as a whole.
Thank you, guys. And right next up is going to be Abraham and Jamie, because Abraham's our new GCPLD director. Yeah.
Hello, and welcome back to this episode of the Garfield County Library podcast. Today we are with our old executive director, Jamie LaRue, and our new executive director, Abraham Korah, to talk about the transition of executive directors and the process and their experiences as executive director. To give you guys a brief overview, Jamie announced his retirement in April, and since then was the long, lengthy process of hiring a new executive director. It was narrowed down to 2 candidates, which both the board of trustees as well as our staff members all got to meet. And after a lot of delegation, on the 29th of May, it was decided that Abraham Korah, who was once the branch manager of Glenwood Springs, would become the new executive director. So thank you guys. Congratulations, Abraham, and thank you for joining us today for the podcast. How are you guys feeling today?
Good.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good. I'm feeling a little rushed, but that's okay. It's the first week on the job. It's only my 4th day, but what a great way to spend my 4th day with all of you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know I've already kind of informally introduced you guys, but please, would you guys tell us who you are and what you guys are up to?
Okay, I'll start. So I am Abraham Korah. I am the new executive director as of Monday. of the Garfield County Public Library District. It's hard for me to believe when I say that. I'm very proud to have this opportunity. I'm proud and also very appreciative of the confidence that our staff across the district, as well as the Board of Trustees, have in me in being able to carry out this job, as well as very appreciative of Jamie, who was very encouraging and supportive of me applying for this position.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamie LaRue, former library director, and I had to just kind of take issue with something. So I actually gave 90 days notice as of January, and then I left on April 9, and then by the end of May, they had a new director. That's unusually fast and smooth, and so I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm delighted that Abraham has stepped in.
Yes.
I think that I was telling somebody, a reporter the other day, and I think she probably got back to you, Eleanor from Aspen Radio. And I was saying that, for one thing, you're more qualified than I am. Like, I have an MLS, he has an MLS, an MBA, and a PhD, and then have that background in the community college, public library world in Texas, and then the community college here, and then to come to us, I feel like you understand the culture. And so I'm just as happy as I can be. Very, very happy for you.
I think this is a sentiment we all share.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, and then
Was there anything else we missed from the story? Thank you for correcting on the January date. Anything else we missed from the story you guys would like to include? Perhaps that wonderful detail about Noah.
Oh yeah, so I was saying that I've never been involved in a process like this before, where it was essentially a public process. So it's almost as if you're in a race and you can actually see the person who is your opponent because they're running next to you. That was very, very unusual and very interesting, to say the least. But I was really appreciative of the process. I was really appreciative as well that I never once took the process for granted or that I had any kind of inside track on the job. I wanted to be competitive. That's what I knew I could control. So I wanted to be as competitive as I could. The one thing I was able to do is I was able to reach out to folks in my network, including Jamie, to get some counsel and some support. So that was certainly something that was so valuable, and I was able to bring that to the interactions that I had over the 2 days. So the first day essentially was a day where Kevin, who is our CFO, he actually took me around to all 6 of the branches as well as the admin area, and so I had a chance to essentially interact and talk to all of the staff essentially across the district. And the other person that was also up for the role had essentially the same experience. And so that was the first day. And then the first day was capped off by a meet and greet that both myself and the person I was, the other candidate, was also involved in. So we were across the room from each other. It was almost like a duel. It was just a verbal duel. So that was, again, a very interesting process. To be able to see the person that you're competing against for the position, but more so, I think for myself as well as the other candidate, it was really about making sure that you're interacting with and having some really rich conversations with the people that you're speaking to. Most of these are patrons, so they're taking their time to come and meet you, which tells me that, one, the library district is important, and they are wanting to invest their time in making sure that the right person was chosen for the job. And I very much appreciated that, and I wanted to honor that. And so I got a lot of hard-hitting questions. That was a fairly exhausting process, to be honest, to finish out the day. But it was also really valuable and also very powerful in terms of that first interaction with the community.
Absolutely.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And then we're going to get into some questions just talking about your guys' experience, what your experience is going to look like, what your experience was, Jamie. So, Jamie, first question for you. What are some of your favorite parts of being a director at GCPLB?
I think I said this at our first podcast. It's just I like seeing people grow. And I think that's exactly what I saw when I got here. It's like there had been, before I got here, a 51% turnover rate, a lot of shakiness and morale. And yet I didn't really find anything broken. Like everybody that I talked to was like they were bright, they were committed, they were connected to the community. And so the whole philosophy for my leadership was to say, if someone says, I've got a great idea, you go, tell me about it. That sounds like really good. You should try that.
Yeah.
You know? And you should be in charge of that. You know, and then just to see people grow like that, that's the thing that I enjoyed the most. I think that the other thing that I enjoyed the most was kind of shifting, as is happening all the way around the country, from a focus internally, but it's all about us, to our job is to make the community better.
Yeah.
And so those two things, seeing people grow, seeing the fact that we were recognized as doing important things for the community, and that people were grateful. So that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
Abraham, what things are you looking forward to as director?
First and foremost, I think the thing that is really amazing about this role is I get to represent the amazing resources that GCPLD provides. And what we do in doing that is we actually better the quality of life in the community in our 6 towns. So having the opportunity to represent that is really amazing. Also, collaborating with colleagues to help shape the future of the district, and to be responsive to the needs of the community as well, I think is really important. And then lastly, if the board approves going to the voters for a mill levy extension, supporting that effort, which is going to be a fairly important and intensive endeavor leading up to voting day, and it's exciting. It feels like a little bit of a high wire act in some sense, but it's also really exciting. And if there's anything that can energize you in a job, it's knowing that you have a specific deadline that you're working towards, and you better really work towards it. And again, it's not me working towards it by myself. It's really a collective effort in terms of our district staff, as well as the supporters in the community and the key stakeholders. And I think in many ways, the easy part of the mill levy extension, if we do go toward wanting to embark on that, is that I don't know that there's a very hard sell in terms of our library district and what we contribute to our communities.
Yes, absolutely.
Jamie, what are some notable changes you noticed in the district as a result of your work?
I think the 3 that I was happiest with was the development, the identification of the Spanish services team, and I think that we tackled something that really hadn't been called out in the district, and there was never any resistance to this from the rest of the staff. I saw people jumping into these leadership roles, trying stuff, programs that brought 500 people into the library. I'm just very, very pleased with that. The other thing was I felt like the community interviews was a real turning point in the history of this district. It went from like, okay, how do we do things, to what does our community care about? And I saw a real change, I think, in the staff. It was transformational. I think that we got much more connected to trying to make things better. And then the last thing was just kind of building a culture of confidence and competence. One of the things that as I think about the stuff going on in the world today, I just get irritated when things are done poorly.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that GCPLD has done very well is we do our job well. We're good at it, and I like seeing the confidence in it. And as I think about, like, on my last board meeting, I thought, well, I have this wonderful chance. 3 documents had kind of hit the board at the same time. And one of them was when we tried to figure out, should we go out for the mill levy, to have an 80% approval rating and a 6% disapproval is unheard of. So that means our community knows we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And then I think the second thing that came through as something that you worked on with Kim and Nancy, why do employees stay? Now, everybody does this study about why does somebody leave, but why they stay is like such a positive way to look at it. And I think that what we heard from that study was that staff like having to have some say over their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be engaged in the planning process and to be engaged in the community interviews and to say, we could try this kind of thing, that's a wonderful vote of approval from the staff. And then the last one, this happens every year, but it's still worth pointing out. We have a clean audit. You know, we have a wonderful CFO and a wonderful HR director, and, you know, and you worked on this these kinds of process with them. But when you get that audit and it's so clean, it's like we manage our money well.
We do.
And when we have somebody saying, you know, oh, you should give the money back or something, it's like, no, you don't apologize for competence. And I think that I hope that the library does go for a mill levy, and I have every confidence that it will win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can just say from personal experience, it's really empowering as a staff member to be able to truly be active in the community.
Yeah.
And it definitely did start with those community interviews.
Yeah.
Cool. Abraham, how did working under Jamie inform how you're moving forward? Is there anything from Jamie's time that you're going to continue doing or you would like to continue to do?
Yeah, I think in terms of my thoughts on that, I think all the things I will mention are all things that I want to continue in terms of what Jamie either started or emphasized in his time in the district. First and foremost, and this actually did come out in the long-term employee surveys that we did, which were surveys with 19 staff who'd been in the district for 7 or more years, was the idea of trust. And that was something that Jamie definitely instilled in the culture here. So I definitely want to continue that in terms of making sure that we do have a culture of trust that we promote within our district. I felt like I did that in the Glenwood branch with our staff, and I felt like that was very successful in terms of making sure that our staff felt safe, secure, and empowered to work, meet the needs of the community, and to be really productive and support each other. So I think that's certainly first and foremost the most important thing. If you don't have that, you really don't have anything else, essentially, as a team. And then, you know, one of the other things that I really appreciate about Jamie is the idea, and this is what I've always said it in my head. I don't know if I ever said it to you, Jamie, but you've always fought the good fight, and I've always appreciated that. So Jamie's always effectively communicated the principles of a public library district, how we support the community, as well as how we, provide resources, and the principles that public libraries stand for. And Jamie was very articulate in communicating that, and my hope is that if I can get halfway there, I will be happy. It's really it's something where, to me, the way that Jamie did that, the way that you did that, Jamie, that is leadership. I would say. Another thing, also in terms of morale, as Jamie referenced, 51% turnover rate. Right now, it's less than 9 across the district, and that 9% is actually lower than even kind of the benchmark of the Roaring Fork Valley as a whole. So we actually have a lower turnover rate than basically any other employer in the Roaring Fork Valley. So which speaks a lot to the work that Jamie did, to the work that the leadership team did, to the pride and camaraderie that was built up in the branches and so forth. So it says volumes. So we got to keep that up, because recruiting and training new staff is a very time-consuming and very resource-intensive process. So when a staff member leaves, a lot leaves with that person. So if we provide those growth opportunities, and again, Jamie and Kim and others really made sure that there were pathways for employees to grow. So they wanted to stay, they chose to stay, and I think we need to continue that. And I think that's extremely important. The other thing I would also say is that in terms of morale, that was something where Jamie did support the rebuilding of that for a lot of staff, and I think trust, going back to the idea of trust, I think is where a lot of that probably started, and just the understanding that and as Jamie did for me, even before I came to the district, is when you are in the branch, when you're in the admin offices, when you're talking to staff, you're listening to staff, that goes a long way, because it shows a respect for your colleague, essentially. And I think that is something I want to certainly continue. And then, the last thing I would say is, in this role is a little different than any other role that I've had. The real privilege of this role is that you get to represent the good work of the staff across the district. But you also have to remember, when you do that the success that you're representing is the success of your colleagues. And it's not the success of your colleagues is what makes you successful. And in a small way, that's how I felt here at Glenwood as a branch manager. I was able to succeed, and I was encouraged to apply for the position of executive director because my staff did well. So the success that I was able to obtain was a direct result of the team that I worked with. If they were not successful, I really doubt that anyone would be encouraging of me even applying or thinking about that role. So I will always be deeply appreciative of the team that at the Glenwood branch who were very instrumental in my success.
Yeah. I was like, oh.
I like that. Yeah.
Darn. Made me almost get emotional here. All right, Jamie. To you, what challenges did you encounter? How did you overcome them? And is there something you would have done differently?
Well, I think that the obvious challenge was the attack from the, I'm not sure what word they go by now, but like these core group of 5 people that have been bringing these disingenuous challenges to the library over the space of 3 years. And what we did was to say, we know what our policies are, we know what the law is, and we didn't get into foolish arguments with people. We said, here's what we stand for. And in fact, we're proud of that. It's like, again, not ashamed of it. We're not, oh my God, please don't criticize. It's like, welcome the criticism. You can say whatever you please. But the bottom line, and what I like about how that challenge was, we just held steady. Just steady leadership. And that goes for the board, that goes for the staff, and it's everybody who said you treat everybody with as much respect as you can muster. And on the one hand, I think as we've completed that, not one book was removed, not one more restrictive policy was adopted. We have continued to treat people with respect even when they don't treat us with respect. And I think that the way I balance that one out is to say, they don't have the right to silence anyone else, but we don't have to silence them either. And so it's a very small minority opinion, but they have the right to express it. So that part's okay.
Absolutely.
The difficulty, the failure, I think, has been with the county commissioners, and I still do not understand the pettiness that drove that on their part, the kind of weird paranoia. I don't know what I could have done to fix it. I tried everything I could think of. And so I think it's sometimes, the library is doing well, the library is well regarded. I'm not sure that the commissioners are as well regarded as the library in that respect. So, this is the community drama that plays out. It's not just about me. It's not just about the next director. It's about what the community wants in terms of how we treat each other. So.
Absolutely.
100%.
And going to Abraham, what challenges do you anticipate facing? I know it's kind of a difficult question.
Yeah, it's certainly the things that Jamie touched on that are continuing will continue and will be things that we need to continue to work on. I don't see any wholesale changes happening overnight. It's really hard to change hearts and minds, of course. But again, as Jamie said, we have an 80% approval rating, a 6% disapproval rating in the community, which is very telling. We're also considered a Tier 1 institution as well, which is typically libraries are considered Tier 2 according to the consulting firm that we've been working with. So it really tells you a little bit about how our communities, the 6 communities in which our branches reside, how our communities feel about us in their minds. In their minds, we are a Tier 1 institution. And I think that, it's, again, speaks volumes of the staff. And the work that the staff did, because ultimately the staff are the library, right?
That's right.
So when someone goes into the Parachute branch and talks to one of our staff members there, that's a library for them. Same thing here in Glenwood and at all of our other branches is that initial interaction that the patron has with our staff member, that's what they see as a library. And I would say we are one of the few organizations or institutions in our community, and it's kind of nationwide as far as public libraries go, where patrons can come and have these really positive and really substantive interactions at no cost. There is no monetary exchange at the libraries. I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of what $38 that our that our taxpayers pay essentially gets done in terms of a household, essentially. I mean, it's best bargain on the planet as far as I'm concerned.
Best sale on the market. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just speaking very briefly to the challenges, certainly, I think, in the work that Jamie did, we were on this very, kind of this growth stage, right? So we had plateaued initially, or we were kind of maybe even a little bit underwater, you might say. So then Jamie got us to zero, and then started us on this growth trajectory. And so where I feel like I come in is we've had a lot of growth, a lot of really substantive efforts, and we're at a point where now I'm going to have us hit the pause button very quickly, or just very briefly, in order to take some time to really reflect on what we're doing and how we're doing. Yeah. Because we have about 100 employees across six branches and our admin team. So it's not a lot of people when you think about the amount of work that we do. Yeah. But you can't keep running forever, right? At some point you do need a little bit of a break. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break to just reflect on how things are going, find ways to build more efficiencies, continue to be productive, but also make sure that the things that we're doing actually meet the needs of the community. And then as needed, we may pivot a little bit, but always keeping the well-being of our staff in mind as well, right? We want our staff, we want to continue that 9% or lower turnover rate. And that means that we have to be cognizant of our staff and their lives, their personal lives, their professional lives, continue to help them grow professionally and to support who they are as people as well, because who they are as people also contribute to the work that they do and continues to, and that work also then is better and more responsive to the needs of the community as well. So those are some of the things that I've been kind of thinking about. Additionally, of course, the biggest challenge being the initial North Star. If the board does vote to go for a mill levy extension, that's kind of first and foremost priority. Yeah. But when you think about that more broadly, when you prepare for a mill levy, what you're really doing is you're preparing for the future. Yeah. So you're really thinking about what is the future, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like in the community. Mm-hmm. So you can plan for certain things, and then with the pausing to really refine, what you're doing is also you're building in the strengthening of foundation and so forth, so that when unanticipated things come up, which they will, mm-hmm. you're also ready for those challenges as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And then Jamie, what things do you hope for in the future? What do you think is critical to continue working on?
The mill levy campaign is first, and I think kind of to underscore some of the things Abraham was saying, I see this as a sustainability issue, mm-hmm. that every public institution has to secure ongoing support from its community. Mm-hmm. And so that, and I think we've made a wonderful start at it. We have a wonderful story to tell. Nobody seems to want us to lose $1 million a year. Yeah. And so that's an easy thing to build on. And I think beyond that, it's like the continued success, continues to stay focused on the community, continue to promote literacy, and continue to celebrate the success. And I think that at this particular moment in history, with all the doom scrolling and the bad news, mm-hmm. I think the most important thing going forward is to tell a better story. Absolutely. So if somebody comes in and say, the library is pushing whatever, and say, no, don't argue with them about the false narrative. Tell them the truth. It's good news. We're changing people's lives every day. And so I think staying focused on the power of that positive impact that we have on individual lives and community lives is essential to our continued well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Abraham, what aspirations do you have for the future of the district in your role?
So my aspirations for the district are, first and foremost, to continue the work that Jamie has done in terms of building us to where we are right now. And so, along with that, and along with kind of the refinements, kind of thinking about, what are the future needs of the communities that we don't we don't currently address, or we want to continue to address better. So as an example, one of the things that I see happening over the next 3 to 5 years is that our relationships and collaborations with our school districts are going to increase. One of the things we're actually working on right now is we're working with the Roaring Fork School District to work on the opportunity for students to be able to use their student ID cards, K through 12 in RFSD, as library cards as well. So it's something that we're working on. It's an initiative that a school board member actually brought to us and asked us, in fact brought to Jamie and asked Jamie to work on, as she had actually experienced that. As growing up, it was very meaningful to her that growing up she could actually take her student ID and go to the library, and so she wanted that opportunity for our students in K through 12 at RFSD. And along with that, I see a real opportunity, and I think that's a starting point, but we have 3 school districts across our 6 towns in which we provide services. And I see, the ways in which we support our K through 12 education across the school districts may look a little different, but I think we'll be able to find some ways in which we can do that. School districts are, they're in a bit of a challenge right now. They also have some resource constraints and so forth. So this is where we can be a real genuine and impactful community partner, whether it's helping students outside of school hours, it's giving a safe and comfortable building where students can learn and grow and have fun, maybe playing D&D. I mean, there's a variety of things. It's going to be straightforward in terms of literacy and so forth, but it can also be other ways in which students can learn. And then one last thing I would say related to that is that I think now more so than ever, having physical spaces, having tangible things, tangible interactions, whether it's children or adults, everyone in the community, it's more important than ever. And that is such an important part of it. So these 6 buildings are really, really important, these 6 communities. I don't think you can understate the value of these buildings and what they do for our community members. And along with that, those really enriching interactions that patrons have with our staff. And then the putting your phone down and actually picking up a physical book. I know that certainly it's something that we all need to be kind of thinking about and doing. I know that with a lot of families, especially at a couple of our branches, where there's a lot of families that have really been putting an emphasis on making sure that they want their kids to read physical books. We have great e-resources, and for our patrons that want to access e-resources, they're convenient, they're easy to access, and whether it's playing an audiobook in your car or not having a very heavy book that you're carrying in your travels, it can be a great thing. But for a lot of our families, more and more, they're determining that physical items are more important in terms of enriching their lives. And I actually see that trend continuing, where I don't think we're not saying we're rejecting digital screens or items and things like that, but we're also, as we use more digital tools, we're actually seeing the value in the tangible tools as well.
Absolutely, 1,000%, in the actual community aspect of interaction and book clubs and all those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
100%. And then we're coming to our final questions for you guys, and these ones are a little bit more heartfelt, not too logical and explanation-y.
meant to more of the torch passing.
Yeah.
The passing of the torch.
The passing of the torch is happening. Woo! Okay, yeah. So, Jamie, is there anything specific, not already mentioned, you would like to pass along to Abraham? What is the most important piece of advice you can offer him?
Well, I think it kind of comes down to 3 things for me. One of them is, you're a smart guy with a good heart. Trust your instincts. That's the first one. You are the right person for the job. And then the second thing is that tap into the wisdom around you. You know, one of the things that I have continued to learn, and every day at this job, is just how much wisdom there is in the room. And so you're not in it alone. It always makes sense to touch base and say, does somebody see something that I'm not seeing? A diverse team makes better decisions. And then the last one, I think that everybody forgets to talk about this, is have fun. It's supposed to be fun. And I think that the fact that we're, you know, the work that we do is noble and interesting and rich and life-affirming, and remember to party.
Yeah. Will do.
Party up at GCPLD.
Party up in GCPLD. Thank you, Jamie. Abraham, is there anything you want to ask of Jamie or anything you want to tell Jamie?
Well, first of all, in terms of telling Jamie, Jamie, I just wanted to tell you that I'm very appreciative and will always be thankful for the time that you gave me, not only after I started in the district, but beforehand as well. And it's something that I carry with me and I hope to pay forward. So first and foremost, I would say that. Secondarily, I would say thank you for your confidence in me in being able to be a competitive candidate and to have the skill set to do this job. I was a very reluctant candidate in terms of application, and it was actually two things that encouraged me to apply. One was in mid-March, I actually reached out to Jamie and asked, Jamie, would you have lunch with me? I want to talk to you a little bit more about this job. And at that point, honestly, I was really not sure, because the bar that I'd set for myself is I will only apply for this job if I feel that I'm capable of fulfilling the duties of the job, especially given that I had a team that I was working with in Glenwood who were doing amazing work, and I didn't want to do anything to ruin that, essentially. So I was very careful in terms of determining whether or not I wanted to apply or not. So those are a couple of things that I can keep thinking about. And then the other thing I would also say is that I appreciate, Jamie, that you've put us in a place where you've helped us through this growth phase of the district. You've left things way better than they were when you came, and I don't know what can be said about a leader and what leadership is than that, which is a leader comes in and makes things better and leave things better for the next person to succeed. So you've set me up for success, and by me I mean essentially our team here in the county. And again, this success is that we have the capability and we have the tools to be able to meet the needs of our communities.
Right.
All right, and then, so Abraham.
Yes.
What's one major plan you want to tackle this year that you can let our viewers know?
Sure. Well, so and I keep harping on this, but if the board does go for the mill levy extension, what we would actually really start focusing on is we're going to focus on our strategic plan, and we're going to focus on where we see GCPLD going in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of services, supports, also capital expenditures and things like that. And I would say probably the biggest thing that I'm thinking about is to make sure that we continue to do the work on the branch refreshes. So we've done 2 refreshes in terms of our Newcastle and Parachute branches. This year, we're going to be doing refreshes on our Silt and Rifle branches. And then from there, hopefully in the following year, we will be doing refreshes on our Glenwood and Carbondale branches. There's some potentially big ideas in the works for what those branch refreshes look like. And I think if there's one takeaway that I would want to let our community know about is just this emphasis on how important these buildings are. In many of our communities, these are the only publicly accessible buildings in which a group can come together to meet, whether it's a students meeting for a study group or if it's a nonprofit organization coming together so that they can do their planning and they can do their annual meeting. We have, for example, Garfield County. The Garfield County has a women's summit that's going to take place here in the Glenwood branch in October. It's a first of its kind that they're doing, and having free and accessible space that's well maintained and that meets the needs of the community is vital, I think, to the continued growth and vibrancy of our community. So that's just one, and it's only one thing, but it's one thing that I feel like we sometimes forget about, in terms of kind of what we do and the important ways in which we serve. Kind of the little pithy thing I've been saying to myself is, oftentimes our community members, they come in for the books and the other items that we have available for them to check out and interact with. But the reason they stay and the reason they come back is our staff, it's the buildings, it's all the services that we provide. That's why people keep coming back. Patrons will not come back if they have one bad experience. But the reason that they continue to come back is actually for all of the other things. So the books and the other materials, they're the frosting on the cake.
Absolutely. Jamie, a question for you. Obviously, if people are interested in finding Abraham, they can just come to the library. But do you have anything you're working on now that you've sort of retired? Any books, podcasts on the horizon?
Well, I continue to serve on the board for the museum here in Glenwood Springs. I attended my first board meeting in 2 parties, another hard partying group, the Soper Sun. I'm on that board. And it was interesting. I got a brief, before it was rescinded, a request to go to Brazil to talk about censorship. And then it's like there wasn't quite enough time to make it all come out. So I'm still kind of involved in that. Sharon and I have been asked by the Arizona State Library to do a leadership training class for leaders, so we'll be doing that. So, I'm continuing to be active.
Continuing to do your library.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
Yeah, amazing.
But I don't have to get up at 5:30, and I can take a nap in the afternoon.
There you go.
Living the dream.
Alrighty. And the final question for both of you, and you guys can think on this because this one's a little hard. Since we both asked you on previous podcast interviews what book you would be described as, what TV or movie genre would your life fall into? Or even if it's a
Science
title.
fiction.
Oh, science fiction.
It's science fiction.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the course of my life, and I think back in the course of my career,
Yeah.
when I first started, it was card catalogs, and you filed everything, by hand. And the first part of my career was automation. And now, as I'm leaving, it's like this specter of AI is looming over everything.
Absolutely.
We have more than 50% of our use is digital. But I think you're right. The observation here is that our real job, even though it's informed by this a lot of technology, the truth of it is, like good science fiction, it's only good if you're telling a human story. And I think the idea that we continue to do that it's story times and it's meetings and it's chit chat in the hallways and it's like I remember doing a study one time where the first reason people come to a library to check out a book, great. Second reason, to bring it back, I like that, evens out. But the third one was to talk to somebody. And so that's like the importance of that library and the importance of telling the human story. So science fiction all the way.
Yeah.
I would say I would consider my book to be a dramedy, or my TV show to be a dramedy. I take my work very seriously. I take the charge that has been given to me by the board and the confidence that the staff have shown in me. I take that incredibly seriously. Myself personally, I take myself incredibly unseriously. So there's nothing that is better for me than to get a laugh out of someone. Always appreciative and thankful for generous laughers. I welcome generous laughers, even if you're faking it. But yeah, I do love to laugh. I do, as Jamie talked about having fun, I do love to have fun. I always say that, the great thing about our jobs in the library district is that simply by coming to work, we're already doing good for our communities. There are very few people that can say that about their jobs. That most people have to go find, okay, I'm going to go volunteer on the weekends to try to do some good. But we get to just do good by just coming to work and have these, great interactions, put together programs and events, and just keep up our buildings, and all of these things that we do really continue to enhance the lives of our communities. And what a gift that we provide to the community, and what a gift that we have in terms of being the ones to provide that.
Absolutely.
100%, yeah.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. Jamie, again, thank you for all of your years in library land. The Garfield County has obviously been impacted amongst many others. And we are grateful for your service, and I am happy to hear that you're still working. And Abraham, I can say on behalf of staff, we are so elated that you are our new executive director, and we really look forward to seeing what you have up to. So once again, thank you guys for coming in today.
So here's a torch, dude. Run with it.
Will do.
He's going to the Olympics next time.
Yeah, there you go.
Afterwards, I'll tell you what one of the board members told me.
Yes, absolutely.